Have you ever walked through a major city and you just looked up, really looked at the old, grand buildings, the ones with massive columns, intricate carvings, and an almost impossible sense of scale? The official story is that these are neoclassical or Beaux Art structures, built in the late 1800s by a young America eager to copy the glories of ancient Rome. But what if that's not the whole story? What if these buildings are relics of a different time? A civilization far more advanced than we're told, a global empire that was wiped from our history books, an empire known as Great Tartary. The year is ke-1851. The Crystal Palace in London is buzzing, celebrating the dawn of the modern industrial age. But in a quiet backroom of the Royal Geographic Society, a mapmaker named Alistair Finch is staring at a ghost. It's a map from 1745, and it shows a world we don't recognize. Where our maps show the vast emptiness of Siberia, this old map details an immense, powerful nation stretching from the Caspian Sea to the Pacific Ocean. Its name, Great Tartary, not just a scattered group of tribes, but a fully fledged empire with cities in the provinces. His colleagues would call it a mistake, an old cartographer's fantasy. But Alistair has seen too many strange connections. He's seen old documents referring to Native Americans as Tartars. He's noticed the bizarrely similar, grand architecture popping up in cities as far-flung as St. Petersburg, Washington D.C., and Melbourne. These aren't just similar styles. They seem to be built from the same global blueprint, with a level of technology that doesn't quite fit the horse in the buggy era. Alistair wonders, what if the modern age wasn't a beginning, but a takeover? What if the monuments the great powers claimed to have built were actually salvaged ruins of a forgotten, global empire? This is where the story gets really strange. Let's go back to those magnificent buildings you see in cities like New York, Chicago, or San Francisco. Think about the original Penn Station, a structure of Roman imperial scale, supposedly built with steam shovels and horse-drawn carts. Why was there a sudden, worldwide obsession with creating buildings that seem engineered for giants? The official line is that America was trying to look important, but the buildings themselves tell a different story. Look closer at the old post offices, the state capitals, the city halls. They all share a common design language. Massive, oversized columns, strange symbols carved into the stone, and most importantly, buried ground floors. This is a key piece of the puzzle. All over the world, you find these beautiful, ornate stone buildings that seem to be sinking into the ground. What we call the basement has windows that are clearly the tops of what were once grand, full-size doors and the windows. The main entrance, the most crucial part of a building's design, is half buried. The standard explanation is sediment buildup over time from paving roads. But this doesn't add up. We're talking about burying the bases of thousands of massive stone buildings across an entire continent, all around the same time period. The sheer volume of earth required is mind-boggling. The Tartaria theory proposes a radical alternative. These buildings weren't built in the late 1800s. They were excavated. They are the survivors of a previous, technologically advanced civilization that was catastrophically buried by a sudden, global event. An event known as the Great Mud Flood. Imagine a worldwide cataclysm, but not of water. A deluge of liquefied ice, a mud slurry that flowed across continents, burying cities and drowning the lower levels of entire civilizations. Where could all this mud come from? Researchers point to possibilities like a comet impact or a massive seismic event that liquefied the vast lowest deposits of the ASEAN steppes, the heartland of Tartary. The evidence is circumstantial, but it's everywhere once you start looking. Take the World's Fairs of the late 19th and the early 20th centuries. The 1893 Chicago World's Fair, for example, featured a white city of spectacular, colossal buildings. The official story is that these were temporary structures made of plaster and wood. Indeed, they were all demolished right after the fair to prevent fires. But look at the photographs. The scale, the detail, the sheer grandeur. Does that look temporary to you? Or was this a massive cover-up? A way to quickly build a new, approved history on top of freshly excavated Tartarian ruins, and then destroy the evidence before anyone could ask too many questions? Then Sir are the star forts. All over the world, you find hundreds of these perfectly geometric, star-shaped fortifications. Military history says they were designed by a 16th century Italian engineers. But their number, their global distribution, and their identical, complex geometry suggests something more. A standardized, industrialized global network. Were these really just forts to defend against cannonballs? Or were they something else entirely? A global power grid, perhaps? Or a defense system for the Tartarian Empire itself? After a cataclysm of this scale, there would be a need to repopulate and rewrite history. This brings us to a dark and often forgotten chapter of American history, the Orphan Trains. Between 1854 and 1929, roughly 200,000 children were taken from East Coast cities and shipped to the Midwest. The stated reason was to rescue them from poverty, but the Tartaria theory suggests a more systematic motive: resettlement. If a global disaster wiped out a huge part of the population, there would be a vacuum. The orphan trains could have been a way to redistribute the surviving children who might have remembered the world before the move into new, controlled environments. They were given new names, new families, and a new history. A history in which Tartaria never existed. But the biggest secret might be hidden in the technology that powered this lost empire. The incredible architecture hints at a power source far beyond coal and steam. Look at old photos of cities before World War I. The rooftops are covered in intricate metal spires, orbs, and the antennae. We're told they're just lightning rods or decorations. But what if they were more? Think about Nikola Tesla. He spent his life trying to develop wireless, free energy from the atmosphere. The Tartaria theory suggests this technology wasn't just a dream. It already existed. The green domes on these old buildings weren't just for show. They could have been resonant chambers. The spires weren't just ornaments. They were energy receptors, pulling power directly from the Earth's electromagnetic field and the atmosphere. A global grid of clean, free energy. The mud flood cataclysm would have destroyed this grid. And when the new powers took over, they found these incredible, silent power stations. They repurposed the buildings, bricked up the flooded lower levels, and began the slow process of inventing something new: metered, paid electricity. A system they could control and profit from. The free energy technology of Tartary was buried, both literally and figuratively. So the next time you see one of those impossibly grand old buildings, with its buried windows and strange spires, take a moment. You might not be looking at a product of the Victorian age. You might be looking at a decommissioned power plant from a lost global empire. A silent monument to a history that was deliberately erased, waiting for us to rediscover the truth. The story is all around us, written in stone and buried in mud. All we have to do is learn how to read it. Thanks for watching, and if you want to dive deeper down the rabbit hole, make sure to like and subscribe.